Okay. Looks like we are recording now.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and share my screen. So one moment. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation mode, like where my mouse is moving? Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Just like Martin was saying, we have a smaller crew here. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to come off mute. And Martin, if you see any questions come through the chat, feel free to stop me and we'll go over those too if you don't feel comfortable going off mute. So very excited to be here with all of you and tell you a little bit more about our program. Then we're also going to go over, when it comes to elevator pitches, what you should be doing there in multiple different situations, as well as email etiquette, fun professionalism, things like that. But we'll wrap up with LinkedIn from the recruiter's perspective. So a little peek behind the curtain to help you all build out your profiles in the best way possible. So just as a quick introduction, my name is Jessica Olson. You can call me Jess, and I am our program coordinator here in the Seattle market, but we are a national company. We do have 29 offices nationally that are listed here. So if you are in any of these other areas, feel free to reach out to me and I can get you connected to the right person. Otherwise, if you're anywhere really on the West Coast, I'm going to be your best point of contact moving forward. So feel free to reach out to me after this too, and I'll have all my contact information on the last slide. So hold on for that. But very excited to chat about all this too. And just as a disclaimer, when it comes to opportunities, although I do represent here in Seattle, if there are any opportunities nationally that are fully remote, I can also help with those too. So I will keep you posted. But as a quick just overview of who is 811 Group, our company has a lot of different names. So I want to make sure that I kind of go over those really quickly. So our company, 811 Group, they are our parent company and they started back in the year 2000. Like I said, we have around 29 markets nationwide. But 811 Group being our parent company, we have these three brands that you see on the right side. One being Brooksource, which is our IT hiring. That's where I'm personally at. So any of the roles I have most likely will be through Brooksource, but I do have insight into both Meta and Calculated Hire as well. So I can keep you posted, but I'm assuming everyone on the call more so wants to be in that IT space. We have MetaSource, which is our clinical IT and life sciences hiring brand. And then we also have Calculated Hire, which is more on that non-IT and business hiring. So there's opportunities that can come from all three, but as an example, here in Seattle, we're working with clients like Microsoft, T-Mobile, Best Buy, Lululemon, State of Washington, Nordstrom, Amazon, places like that. That said, we again have a bunch of clients nationally. So if you ever are interested in any roles that you see posted, just let me know. We can get you connected. But that is our company in a nutshell. But I did want to go over what Elevate is. So Elevate is actually the program that I run. As I said, I'm a program coordinator and this is that program. Elevate's our associate level hiring program built for candidates that are just getting out of college, a boot camp, certificate program, any career transitioners that are jumping potentially from a non-tech field into the tech field, also veterans as well that are transitioning into the civilian workforce after serving the service. So we cover a lot of ground there, but at the end of the day, it's anyone that's transitioning into tech. We're working with a bunch of different type of talent, but when it comes to our program overall, it's meant to help candidates get into an opportunity at one of those clients I had mentioned. And then we put you through additional professional and technical training while you're in that job with that client. And then the whole end goal is to make sure that you're brought on full time at the end of that contract, which I'll go over what a contract is if you're unfamiliar. But the whole point of all of that is we do provide you one-on-one support from both myself as the program coordinator, but also someone internally on the team, and make sure that you have all the skills and tools to thrive in that job, as well as be brought on full time at the end. So as a quick overview of contracting, if you're not familiar, our company works on mostly contract to hire work. Elevate falls in that contract to hire bucket because the whole point is to get you brought on full time by that same team. But basically what that means is you'd be an employee of my company, Brooksource, for a 6 to 12 month time period where we cover your pay, your benefits, your HR support, all of that, but you're working on that client's project. So for example, you're working for us, but you're working at Microsoft day in and day out, and with their managers and such. And we're just kind of handling that HR side. What's a little bit different about us is we do have that Elevate program where we put you through that additional professional and technical training to make sure it's a really good fit for you. And then at the end of the program, the whole point is to get you brought on full time at that client, like I mentioned. So then you're able to convert full time and not be on contract anymore. We don't want you to be bouncing around contract to contract. Typically, it's a one contract and done, you're brought on full time. So that's how contracting works at Brooksource. And one thing that people don't often notice is you also do receive benefits on contract. There are a few things that are a little bit different, like it's hourly pay, paid out on a weekly basis. We offer vision, medical, and dental benefits, paid holidays, we have sick time. And then the really big difference between a full-time role in contracting is you don't have instant access to like that 401k or PTO plan. But again, at the end of it, the whole point is to get you brought on full time with the team, and then they have amazing benefits normally. So that is kind of an overview of Brooksource, what contracting is. And this is a quick little overview of how you do get to work with us. So step one, it's, something like this where you and I, meet over a video call, and then we'll set up a one-on-one conversation. Step three, we'll go over your resume, give any tips or tricks as you're entering into the workforce. And then hopefully an opportunity comes up, we can help get you prepared for the interview. And again, hopefully you get the job offer, step 5. And then step 6 is when the program starts. So I put this in here to reiterate that our program, there's no applying to it prior. It doesn't start until there is an opportunity for you to move into one of our clients and then go through that additional technical and professional training. So that is the kind of timeline on how to work with us too. But after this, I'm going into all the rest of this presentation. I just wanted to give that very quick overview of what we do in Brooksource overall, but I saw we had a couple people that had joined late. Don't worry, this is being recorded. But I also wanted to give the disclaimer that we are wanting to keep this really interactive. So if you have any questions, jump in. That said, I'm going to pause here, and I know that was a lot of information about our company and our program. And it's probably a lot of new things. So any questions at this point?
I kind of have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So I was curious about, what current openings there are for Brooksource, and I'm not seeing anything. Is it like updated at a certain like time and date or at a specific interval?
Great question. At this very moment here in the Seattle market, I personally don't have any Elevate opportunities open. That's why I mentioned the call out about our national opportunities. They definitely have those going up. That said, I will be your best point of contact for that. So if you reach out to me, we kind of have, so there's one of my role as a program coordinator in each of our markets, and I'm very well connected to them. And we every week talk about the roles that we have nationally that are going on. So if you and I have a connection, then I'm able to then recommend you to one of those opportunities. But also as a call out, just because we all have made this connection now, if you do ever see a position that's posted, I guess to go to your original question, no, it's not on a recurring basis. But if on LinkedIn or anything like that, you see that there's a posting, because they're just posted as we get a role, you can forward it to me, send your resume with it, and I'll forward it to the recruiter to personally recommend you as well. So you have a better chance of being talked to by that recruiter too. So to answer the original question, no, there's not like a date that we release them. It's just as there's an opportunity, we release them.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
All this should be online or in person? The distance
Great
is important or no?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of the opportunities that we have at this point, after obviously COVID and everything, a lot of things moved to virtual. So the role, it just depends on the opportunity. I would say 80% of the time it is going to be remote though. That said, all of our training has always been fully virtual. So whether you're on site working with one of our clients, that training is still always going to be online. But again, most of the opportunities that we have are in a virtual setting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Great question. Any other questions here before we move on? Okay. Awesome. Well, if you have any that you want to take offline too, my email is going to be at the end, so feel free to reach out. Awesome. So let's get into some of this. So first, starting with the tell me about yourself. One thing that's really important when you're going into an interview is you're going to be asked this question almost every time you talk to a recruiter. So having this really down pat is going to be really important. And I have it split into 3 different sections because I know that going through Skillspire, there are a lot of different people in a lot of different situations. So I'm going to start with early in career, and then I'll go over as a veteran how you should be explaining this, and then lastly as a career transitioner. That said, a lot of them, there's a lot of good bits and pieces that you could take from each, but this is kind of the just general thing that you should be covering for each. So first, starting with early in career. It should start with an introduction. So start by introducing yourself, your current position, your industry, whether that be position that you've had as an intern, or if you're in one right now, or if I were you all and you're going through Skillspire, I would introduce yourself and that you're a student at Skillspire. Next, I would do passion, share your passion for your work, your industry, your field of study. This should really just help and convey your enthusiasm and your interest in the work that you do. Next being experience. So briefly touch on any relevant experience that you have had in the past or currently. Again, this can be about Skillspire and what you've been learning while you've been in school and how that conveys to this opportunity. This also could include internships, volunteer work, or any really other relevant experience that you might have had that demonstrates your skills or knowledge relative to what they're looking for. Next, skills. So highlight your unique skills, your strengths that make you an asset to the team. So think about specific qualities that really set you apart from other candidates, like your ability to collaborate effectively, your strong attention to detail, your excellent problem solving skills, any technical skills that you have as well that you know that they're looking for. If you had a specific project that you worked on that really showcased that, you can go into that there. And then last, well, I guess not lastly, but second to last, goals. Share your career goals and how they align with the position or company that you're interested in. If it's an industry that you're super excited about and passionate about, share that in your introduction. That's something that will get the employer or the hiring manager or recruiter really excited and bought into you because they know how bought in you are to the role. So I think a lot of people are scared to kind of go a little bit more personal, but that will help build that relationship with whoever it is that you're talking to. And then lastly, conclude. End your pitch by thanking the listener, whether it be a recruiter, hiring manager, what have you, for their time and expressing your interest in learning more about the opportunity or the company. And then you can also end it with, wrapping up why you're a good fit and why you're so excited to be talking to them that day. So that's a good template kind of as a early in career individual. Before I move on to veteran, does anyone have any questions about that, or does anyone maybe want to give it a shot?
I have a question.
Okay.
So, what's the definition of someone who is early in their career? Is it like 0 to 2 years of tech experience?
Yeah, I would say that's probably the range that we'd be looking at here. It's someone that either just graduated or they've had a few, like maybe they've had like 1 year of experience outside of school.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. But I
Um,
think this also kind of applies to, even if it's not just early in career, I think this same template would apply to anyone that's really looking for a job generally too.
I'm in United States, and I didn't apply. I didn't work in a software engineer
Okay.
position, and but I worked when I was in my country,
Yeah.
and so is it? It has effect that I applied for some job position in United States because I don't have work experience. But now I'm working on projects. To be honest, I have one website. I'm working on it, and I'm making my capstone. So does it have effect that I got some job? Because yeah, my question is about experience. I don't have yeah job experience
Definitely.
about software engineer, but I had a job in
Yeah.
in United States. What is your opinion about that?
Yeah, really great question. So the next one we're going to go over is veteran, but the last one's going to be career transitioner. And I think that's going to be really helpful for you because it's talking about, I don't have these specific skills in a work capacity, but these are the projects I've done. And then this is some transferable skills from my non-tech role that I think could be good too. So we'll go over that at the end. And then if you still have that question, speak up and then we'll go over it again. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. So let's go on to veteran. So all of these, again, they are similar in the same vein, but there's just a little bit of a different take that you could be taking with them too. So with veteran, I would start with the same introduction, but start by introducing yourself and your military background, include your rank, your branch of service, and how long you were in the military as well. Let kind of give them a glimpse into what that looks like, but also just keep in mind, and this will be a common theme, that a lot of the civilian world doesn't necessarily understand what that means. So it does take a little bit of extra work, but explaining thoroughly like what that meant, as well as something that you're going to want to make sure to keep in mind. Transferable skills. So highlight the skills and experience that you gained during your time in the service that are relevant to the civilian workforce and the role that you're going into. So this could include your leadership, teamwork, adaptability, problem solving, communication skills, all those things that are highly, highly valued out of the military that are also highly valued in the civilian workforce as well. Those are things you're going to want to go over. And also just noticing what those transferable skills is a really great place to start too, which I think is actually on the next slide. So we'll go over that in a second. Next, accomplishments. Share some of your proudest accomplishments during your military service. This can help really just demonstrate your ability to set those goals, achieve them, and give them a better understanding of actually what you did in the military service as well. Industry interests. So talk about the industry or field that you're interested in pursuing and maybe why you are, especially if it's much different than what you had done in the service, kind of similar to that career changer there. Goals. So share your long-term goals and how they align with the position or company that you're interested in. And this shows, again, that you have a clear vision for the future that you're actively working toward and you want to achieve those goals. And then lastly, conclusion. So end your pitch by, very similar to the other one, thanking the listener for their time and expressing your interest in learning more about the opportunity in the company. And again, it's a really great way to make sure that you're expressing exactly why you're a good fit. Any questions about the veteran piece before we move to the career changers? Do we have any veterans on the call right now? If you do, speak up. Okay. I'm sure we have some that will listen to the recording, so hopefully that's helpful. And then lastly, career changers. So exactly what you were asking earlier. So first, I would start with introducing yourself, just as the rest of them. Introduce your current background and your current role or industry that you've worked in. So again, whatever you did prior to potentially going into software engineering. But then also I would take this time to dive a little bit deeper into Skillspire and what you're learning and how it will transfer, but that will come a little bit later. Why you want to change careers. So provide a brief explanation of really why you're wanting to change that career and what inspired you in the first place to pursue this new path. That'll help them better kind of connect the dots there too. This could be based on personal interest, desire to have more impact, a need for a new challenge, or you've always been interested in it, never just took the chance to go into it. You had the opportunity to go to Skillspire. I think there's a lot of different things you could dive into there. transferable skills. So discuss the transferable skills that you're bringing from that previous career. So make sure that you're explaining how they're going to be relevant to your new career. And this could be kind of similar to what I was saying about veterans, whether that be leadership, problem solving, project management, communication, creativity, being able to think on your feet. There's a lot of different transferable skills that you can probably connect the dots from your last opportunity that would be good in this new work environment, especially looking at that job description and figuring out exactly what that's going to be is the best way to go about that too. And then another thing to really do is emphasize your commitment. I think some people that see career changers, they're like, well, do they actually want to be doing the role that they're applying for? Or is this just an opportunity? So show that you're really committed to making a successful transition into your new career by really just discussing any relevant training or education that you've undertaken, any volunteer work, any projects to demonstrate your passion for the new field. So I think this goes back to your original question too. This is where I would really talk about Skillspire, what you've been doing, some of the projects, and show the passion behind why you're wanting to make that career move. And I think that's something that will really, squash any sort of hesitations that a recruiter might have too. And then lastly, summarize and conclude. So summarize your pitch, and just as the others, explain your excitement for the opportunity and why you think you're going to be a good fit too. Did that answer your questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. I got it.
Of course. Any other questions about the career changer aspect? Okay. So next, moving into another part of the interview. So they will ask you to tell, they all the time will ask you to tell me about yourself. So make sure you kind of have that one top of mind and you've practiced that. That's one thing to note that's really important. But next, they're going to ask you about your experience. So they might ask you about your last job. So first, when you're asked about that last job, I would start by providing some context. So rather than just talking about exactly what you did, make sure you're kind of framing in what the company was. A lot of these companies that you may have had an internship at or something, unless it's an extremely well-known company, a lot of these recruiters aren't going to know what that is. And even if it is an extremely well-known company, it shows them that you had an understanding of kind of what was going on in the company. So provide a little context about the company and organization that you worked for. You can include its size, its mission, its industry. Really just, again, overall helps the interviewer understand the scope of what you were potentially doing there and the challenges that you might have faced. And so after you provide context of what the role was and who you were working for, you actually need to describe your role. So whether it be like I was an intern as a software engineer, then go over the responsibilities that you had on your team and maybe some of the key achievements that you had accomplished while you were in the role, and then how the achievements that you had completed were then contributed to the company and how it did help the team that you were working on or whatever that might be. Next, highlight your skills. So talk about the skills that you gained during the time that you were in the role, including technical skills, leadership skills, soft skills, communication, problem solving, and really give some specific examples of how you use these skills to achieve those results. I did want to pause here and say that everything that we're kind of going through right now, that could be for an internship, that could be for a totally different role that has nothing to do with your opportunity that you're in right now. Finding those transferable skills is important, but also all of this could be provided in a context of Skillspire too. If you don't have previous experience that you necessarily want to talk about, you can provide context of what Skillspire is, what you had done there, how long it was, and the part would be your role. So what track you went down, exactly the skills that you learned, highlight those skills, go over some projects. So think of that in this framework too. If you're reading through this and you're like, Jess, I don't have an experience I really want to talk about, I think this is a very similar framework for that too. So next, share your challenges. So discuss any of the challenges that you faced in this role and how you overcame them. This really shows your resilience and your problem solving abilities, and contrary to popular belief, they don't, companies don't want you to be perfect. They want to know like the challenges that you faced, how you've gotten through them, because that really speaks a lot to you and your work ethic, your character, things like that. And you will be asked probably in an interview what is a time that you totally messed up and how you came back from that. So even like upfront sharing your challenges that you had in whether work setting, school setting, is just a really great way to go. So explain what you learned. So finally, really just explaining what you learned from the experience, again, whether it be school or work or whatever, and then how it's prepared you for the role that you're interviewing for. So kind of taking it full circle. Yes, I had this prior experience, but it's now prepared me to go into this situation, this opportunity on your team, because I saw that you're looking for these skills and I've gained those through that experience, is what you're trying to kind of convey there and how it makes you a strong fit for the position. And then lastly, the whole, with all of this, you are going to be asked to give specific examples about some of the projects. So if you're asked about one of the projects that you worked on, a really great way to go around that is using the STAR method. Anyone on the call know what the STAR method is? Could they say it to me?
Yes.
Okay.
The situation, the task, the action, and the result.
Perfect. Good job. So yeah, STAR method should be used anytime that there is a question about like a specific project that you had worked on, and it gives a really good holistic view of what you had done on that project. So explain kind of similar to what we just went over here about your experience, but diving a bit more granular into the project. So explain the situation, how the project came about, what the kind of overall environment is, and then task, exactly what you were tasked to do on that team within the group. I think the biggest thing to note there is, it's more of a me than a we. So making sure that you're specifically portraying exactly what you did. You could talk about what the team did, but then make sure you dive in a little bit more into what you were specifically responsible for. And that's when you kind of talk about the actions that you took while you were in that project, and then results, how it ended, what you ended up doing with the project. Was it successful? Did you learn something from it? Even if it wasn't 100% perfect, that's okay. They just want to know what that result was. And if it was successful, great, you learned a lot. If it didn't work out, then you probably learned even more, which is a really great example. So it doesn't always have to be a perfect example either. But yeah, that is kind of how to best explain your experience from, when you're asked about an entire job and then when you're asked about a project. Any questions there?
Is it necessary that we show our project for them in interview times, or not? Our explanation should be enough about our project, about our some task that we did in the past.
So I would always be prepared if it's a video interview, if it's more than just a phone call, always be prepared, have your portfolio or like a project up in case they ask you to screen share. But typically, if you are going to be asked to present on a project, you'll get that heads up. But I would just be ready to, even sometimes I've had people just without even, what me asking, they've just said, hey, I actually have it up right here. I'll just screen share and like kind of walk you through the project too. And that's cool. But I would say normally they're not going to just spring that on you. So unless you're specifically asked to prepare that, then I would just be, have it kind of in the background.
Thank you.
Yeah. But normally if they're asking you the question, they're just looking for you to verbally explain it.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions there? Okay.
No.
Thank you. Okay, and then how to communicate transferable skills and advocate for yourself. So I think transferable skills is going to be really important, really, for all those three spectrums. I know we talked about early in career, we talked about veterans, we talked about career changers. All three of those buckets will have some sort of transferable skill, whether it be from your education, whether it be from your military background, or it be from a previous opportunity and now your education. So the first thing, in how to communicate those transferable skills is to sit down and identify what those are. So look at the skills and experiences that you have from previous jobs, projects, education, that are going to be relevant to the specific role that you're applying for. And those, for example, things that are transferable skills could be projects like project management, leadership, problem solving, communication, teamwork. That's more of the soft skill side, but it could be any system that an old company had used. It really can be anything. Best tip is to go through the job description and like kind of highlight what you have, what you don't have, what you have, not transferable experience, but what you have similar experience with. If it's a tool that you've used, like a front end tool, but it wasn't the exact same one, like just sit down and kind of write down what those transferable skills are. And then when you do get into the interview, again, you've kind of put a lot of thought into that, and you'll have a chance to kind of, it'll just roll off the tongue a little bit better. But then when you do get into that interview, make sure you're using specific examples. So use the specific examples that you had just kind of written down to illustrate those transferable skills. So include specific projects that you worked on, challenges you faced, how you overcame them, quantify those experiences and those results whenever you possibly can too. And then a big thing for, career changers, people that are, transitioning out of the service, is to make sure that you're customizing your resume and your cover letter. Cover letters, I would say, are a hot topic. Some people love them, some people don't. I think it really depends on the role there, but make sure with, as a career changer in any capacity, you are customizing your resume and cover letter for each job application in the sense of highlighting those transferable skills that are going to be most relevant to the position and provide those examples of how you use those skills in previous roles. A really great way of doing this that I've seen a lot of people do on their resume after they've explained an experience, they'll have a little line at the very bottom of like their last bullet point that just says skills used, and then list those out. That really helps recruiters see. But just make sure, again, you're able to kind of articulate in your own words, especially as a career changer, to an employer before they even have a chance to talk to you, so that they know you have those skills. 4, prepare for the interview. So making sure that you're, again, sitting down, the things that we just talked about, thinking through them, putting a little bit of thought into that will really help you in that interview process. So it'll help you articulate your transferable skills when you're asked about them. And then again, be ready to provide those specific examples there. And then finally, be confident. Make sure that you are confident in your abilities and advocate for yourself during the application and interview process, and are really prepared to explain how those transferable skills make you a very strong candidate for the position and why you're the best fit for the job. So I think that confidence comes from repetition and continuing to practice that, but that will really help them know that you are very confident about your skills and your ability to do this job. Where if you come off a little bit more timid, and I know it's hard to just turn it on and be confident, but if you are coming off more timid, it portrays that you're not, you don't feel you have the ability to do it, when you probably have more than the ability to do it. So just keep that in mind too, about these interviews too. And that's why it's good to practice. Any questions about communicating those transferable skills, advocating for yourself?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, I always did in person interview, and but I am a little bit uncomfortable with online interviews. So, what is your recommendation?
I like that question. I've never been asked that before. I think, like, personally, it's interesting because for me, I would be more nervous about in-person interviews than online. So that's an interesting flip. But I think the nice thing about in-person is you're able to read the people a little bit better, which I totally understand. For online interviews, a way to make sure that you're more prepared for it, and you can go in with more of that confidence, you know, honestly, little cheat sheet on the side is something that I've done. So kind of listing out, having your resume open, and being able to kind of reference that. That's the perk of having a online interview. And then maybe like listing out a few things, like again, those transferable skills, like list them out and have them kind of on your sidebar. Just so, and not in like a script way. Definitely don't write out a script because that won't go well for you. You'll probably stumble over it and they'll be able to tell that you're reading. But just a few key things that will make you feel more comfortable in the interview is totally okay. One thing I normally suggest if it's an online interview, write down the company's core values, find ways to incorporate those into your answers. But again, if there's things that you feel that you normally stumble on in interviews, like having that little kind of side sticky note could be really helpful. And also listing out, and that's totally okay to do. And you can even tell them that you typed out some questions, but listing out some of the questions on the side too can really help help you as you're going through. But does that help at all? I feel like that maybe didn't answer your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes.
Okay.
That's
Okay. Yes. But look at you, that confidence in in-person interviews is something that not everyone has. So good job.
helpful.
You have to share
Yeah,
me your tips on that.
yeah, I'm confident and so motivated person, to be honest. But and always I did my interviews in person.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't do interview with online or remote. So I'm asking. Yeah, your answer
Yeah.
was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm gonna have my contact information at the end here. And if anyone wants to do like a mock interview too and get kind of through those online jitters, I'm more than happy to do that. So let's schedule that after this.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then last slide, just kind of about professionalism here, and then we'll go more into the LinkedIn side and give you a peek behind the curtain. Just wanted to include email professionalism. I think it's something that obviously you'll use in your day-to-day when you actually get into an opportunity, but it's also really important to be utilizing email professionalism skills as you're looking for a job too, and when you're reaching out to these recruiters and hiring managers. And just keeping that in mind. So the main things just to keep in mind when it comes to email professionalism is being clear and concise, writing your emails in a way that is easy to read and to understand. Use short paragraphs, bullet points, headings to break up long blocks of text. Avoid using any sort of like jargon or something that the recipient will really be aware of, like any sort of like acronyms potentially. And also another thing to note there is, jokes don't always come across very well over email. You might be meaning to just, laugh along about something and you think it comes off well, but you can't notice tone through an email. It's just like a text. It's really frustrating. And you can mean it in one way, but it's read in another. So being as clear and concise as possible is the best way to go. Use proper grammar and spelling. One suggestion that I have is there is like a free little widget that you can download on your computer called Grammarly. It'll check and make sure that you are spelling things correctly, you're using proper grammar. It really helps in those situations. But poor grammar and spelling can, create a negative impression and make it difficult for the person that's getting your message to understand it, but also, you never want it to be kind of the first impression and then they're like, well, we don't want to hire them because they can't write this email. So just making sure that you're using spell check and you're proofreading those emails before you send them is a good way to go. Next being just professional and polite. So addressing the person by name, using a polite tone, avoid using slang or emojis or anything like that too. Excessive exclamation points. I'm a personal culprit of this. I want everyone to know that I'm smiling and happy on the other end of this email. But if you use too many, it could also come across like you're shouting at them. So keeping that in mind, trying to kind of, separate those out a little bit. And it can also come across as unprofessional as well. So throw in a couple, that's totally fine, but just don't have it on every single one. And then subject lines. This is another thing that I personally struggle with. I'll sit down and I'll write a beautiful email and then sit there for about 10 minutes trying to think of a subject line. So one example for that is just clear and simple is the best way to go. It doesn't need to be this really long drawn out thing. Typically, if it's over, I think 5 words, it makes it less likely that someone's going to open it too. So as short and concise as possible is good. And it also needs to just accurately reflect the content of the email. And then lastly, just following up in a timely manner there, responding promptly to emails is great to show your professionalism really early on in a interview process. And one thing with that too is even if a email doesn't necessarily require like a long response from you, a really great way to go about it too is still responding and saying, thank you, received, or awesome, got that information, appreciate it. Something like that that acknowledges that you saw what they were talking about, even if you don't, it doesn't require a response, if that makes sense. So that's a few just little bullet points on email professionalism there. Any questions about that before we move into the LinkedIn portion of the presentation?
I have just extra question, and that is, in interview days, they will ask us for coding or not. For coding something, for problem solving, for example, they will give us some question or some problems, and that we code it, or no, it is not.
Are you asking like in an email, or are you saying for just interviews in general?
In general.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If you're asking about like my company, it depends on the client. Some of them will ask us to do a coding assessment beforehand, some won't, but normally you'll have one when you get to the final interview with them. But not all opportunities do require that, but a lot of them, I would say, as you're going into the software engineering field, do. There are a lot of really great resources like LeetCode, HackerRank. A lot of them. I have like a long list that I have just copy pasted on my OneNote that I can if you ask for it in an email, I'll send it over to you afterwards. But it'll help you kind of prepare for that interview.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Cracking the coding interview, I think, is another one. But yeah, I have a list of resources. So if anyone wants it, feel free to email me afterwards and I'll get that to you. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to LinkedIn. So just a brief overview of why it's important. And then we'll go over how to use it to market yourself best on your personal LinkedIn and how recruiters use it overall. And then I'll end with sharing my screen and giving an example of what it looks like. So why is LinkedIn important? It's important for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, a lot of people use it to apply to jobs, but you also need to make sure that your LinkedIn is built out in a way that you're able to pop up in relevant searches. So a recruiter will go in and search keywords, and you want to make sure that if you're looking for a job, they're able to find you, and we'll make sure to go over how to do that. A lot of people also use LinkedIn for networking, really kind of what it was originally meant for and built for. So use that to network and build your brand there. And then, yeah, lastly, building your brand and making sure that you're kind of giving people a glimpse into what you're passionate about. It's a form of social media platform that should really only be used to go over work things. So keeping that in mind and building your brand around that. Some quick fun stats about LinkedIn that I wanted to throw on the screen. 90% of recruiters are using LinkedIn regularly. I think honestly that number is probably a little low. I know that 100% of our recruiters in my company use it every day, almost all day, and they use it as their main recruiting tool. But it is something where I would say a majority of recruiters are really relying on LinkedIn to find their talent. So making sure you have a really built out LinkedIn is very important. And then I won't go through all of these, but there's just a lot of fun stats about why you should be using LinkedIn. 6 people are hired every minute on LinkedIn. 49 million people use LinkedIn to search for jobs each week. More likely to be found if you have a profile picture, things like that. So take a look at this, and it's on the recording, so you can take a little bit deeper dive into it later too. But before I showed my screen on LinkedIn, I know a few of you attended my last presentation where we did a bit of a more like deep dive into LinkedIn. And I know that's on recording too. So I'm sure Martin could find that and send it over to you too if you have any questions. But I did want to mention InMail and LinkedIn Recruiter as a whole. So InMail is LinkedIn's messaging system that allows recruiters to contact you about new opportunities without having to use your personal contact information. So even if you don't have your phone number, your email, a recruiter's still going to be able to reach out to you through InMail. Important thing to note is when a recruiter messages you through InMail, it'll continue to stay in their what's called LinkedIn Recruiter inbox. LinkedIn Recruiter inbox is different than the inbox that you have on your normal recruiter, on your normal LinkedIn. That's why you might notice that sometimes recruiters don't get back to you so quickly when you message on LinkedIn, because if you're sending them a message on LinkedIn, it'll just go to their LinkedIn inbox. But if they send you a message, it's from their LinkedIn recruiter, it's from their recruiter inbox InMail. I know it was probably a little confusing, but typically recruiters are in LinkedIn Recruiter, so periodically they'll go back and check their LinkedIn, and that might be why you're not getting a response, so just continue to follow up is really what I was trying to get at there. But when you do get a message from a recruiter, you can respond in 3 different ways. 1, accept the message. This allows that recruiter to start a conversation with you and talk more about the opportunity, set up a call if it's a good fit, and lets them know that you're potentially open to the role. I personally would accept the message and have some sort of response instead of just accepting, so they know that you're interested there. 2, you could decline the message. This shows the recruiter that you're not interested in that specific role. You're able to send a message with a decline. So I would, if I were you, probably decline and say, looking for roles but not interested in this role, or I found a job, thank you so much. I'll let you know if I ever need anything else in the future. But giving a little note of why you declined the message really helps them understand, because as a recruiter, if you decline, I'm like, oh, well, they don't need a job. So I probably, if I had another role that's a really good fit for you next week, probably won't reach out. But I didn't know that you just didn't want that job. So giving some context is good. And then when you do decline, though, a recruiter cannot respond to the message thread. So if you'd like to keep those communication lines open, I'd recommend honestly just accepting the message and explaining why you're not interested in that specific role if you're still looking for an opportunity. And lastly, you can ignore the message. If you do this, you might just not be contacted again. And I'll show you on LinkedIn Recruiter, there's actually a filter that shows who is more likely to respond to your messages, whether it be an accept or a decline. So the best process is to make sure that you're accepting or declining any messages, so you're not kind of counted out if recruiters are trying to get a hold of you really quickly, and they toggle that little switch, which I'll show you that in a bit. But making sure that you're responding semi-quickly and have those notifications on for LinkedIn is going to be really important, just because typically recruiters are going pretty quickly, whether it really depends on what type of role it is, but sometimes they'll reach out to you and a couple days later the role's already filled. So you want to make sure that you're keeping on top of that too. Any questions about the messaging side before I go into the screen share portion?
No,
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here and show my view of LinkedIn Recruiter really quickly. So 1 moment. Can everyone see Recruiter? LinkedIn?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So here's an example of kind of what a search would look like when you're first getting into Recruiter. So as you can see, it says LinkedIn Recruiter up here, a little bit different than your traditional recruiter that you would see. But when it comes to what's different about this is for like a search of really any candidate that is in the market. So I can go down here and I have all these fun filters. So we have a way to filter by job title. I put in a job title there. their location, if I'm only looking for people, say, in Washington, workplace types, so on-site, remote, hybrid. So, looking for people that are specifically looking for those, skills and assessments, companies that they've worked for, schools, so I could put in like Skillspire here. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. My goodness. I'm gonna put that in keywords. Year of graduation, industries, keywords, employment type, recruiting activity. So those are some of the main filters that people can pull from. But I guess someone give me three technologies that you've been working with at Skillspire, just to start. Any programming languages, whatever it might be.
For example, C#,
Okay.
Azure Cloud.
Azure, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. One more.
HTML.
Perfect. So doing this means, so what this is doing here is saying when I do the search, I'm only looking for people that have C# and Azure and HTML somewhere on their profile. So if I press enter here, we now have 360,000 people in the world that have those three things on their profile. One thing that I will add is and Skillspire. So that then takes us to 6 people. So the reason this is only showing 6 people when probably more than 6 people from Skillspire have this is because it's pulling from their keywords on their profile. So one large misconception is this isn't at all pulling from your resume. So your resume could be the most beautiful built out resume ever and have all these keywords on it. If your LinkedIn profile doesn't have that, then you aren't going to be found in this. So best rule of thumb is just starting out with your LinkedIn, copying and pasting everything that you have on your resume to your LinkedIn, but then even adding more. So for example, now I can see that this person, has really everything we're looking for here. I'll scroll really quickly past his contact information, but you could see any of the skills that I had typed in are going to be highlighted here. So I can easily see where he has this experience. And then down here, he has Skillspire as a school. And Martin, that's one thing that I've noticed, and we can talk about this offline, but Skillspire doesn't have like an official education account that is tagged there. So something to look into. Again, we can talk about this afterwards, but he has listed exactly what he had done during his time at Skillspire and explained really what it is. And I definitely recommend doing that too. But that's how that is really working. And really, it's just a good way to understand, how all of that works. And again, we can go more and more in depth too. I could say looking for people that are in Seattle, looking for people that are in a specific area and go from there. But one thing I did want to really, and then you can also toggle by people that are open to work. So making sure that you have open to work on there. More likely to respond is what I was talking about before. If you ignore all of your messages, you're not going to show up in the more likely to respond category. And then people that have applied in the past to opportunities that we have. But another thing I wanted to share is, so this is a role, maybe, this is a role, that I had way back in the day, if it'll load. So this opportunity was a software engineering role, and it was posted as a normal job post, as you can see here. And when you go into Talent Pool as a recruiter, I can see there are, should be 700 applicants, 700 people. And this is why it's so important to make sure your LinkedIn's built out. I'll go into the keywords. So this role was looking for someone that had C# and .NET and some sort of cloud. So I would do cloud or Azure or GCP or AWS. So we capture all of those different cloud platforms. And it might glitch on me, so give me one sec. Yes, so it went from 700 people to 104 people now. That said, I can almost guarantee there's probably 50% of the 600 people that just got cut out that have that exact experience, but it's just on their resume. It's not on their LinkedIn profile. And that's why it's so, so important when you're applying to these jobs, to make sure that you have your LinkedIn profile built out in a way that you are then able to be found by the recruiter afterwards. So that's just a quick PSA there. I know we are coming up on time here, so I did want to pause here and see if anyone had any specific questions about what we just went over when it comes to LinkedIn, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Or more like a comment, but rather I'm kind of curious on, what I would look like if you were trying to find me on your recruiting platform, or is that something personal that you can't really share?
No, I absolutely could. The only thing I will say is we are recording right now. So if you want to schedule a one-on-one with me afterwards, we absolutely can set up a one-on-one conversation where I'll show you what your what it looks like, and we can even do like a practice, like try to find you just by keywords to see if you're searchable and then go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And that being said, when it comes to contact information, did want to throw this back up on the screen really quickly. If you are wanting to connect, send me an email at jolson@brooksource.com. That's my LinkedIn there. That QR code will pull up my LinkedIn. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, hopefully. We've gone over like the importance of connections and everything there too. And if you would like to get in contact with me, you can send me an email at that email and then just put Skillspire as the subject line there. So we can make sure that, I don't miss any of you that are sending an email through too. But on my LinkedIn, if you do go to that LinkedIn, in my about section or my summary section, I do have a link to my calendar for career office hours, going over LinkedIn's and deep dives and everything that you were asking about, Amanda. So we can absolutely do that there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to send me an email as well. But I think that's wrapping up the presentation, Martin.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you everyone for joining and for having so many amazing questions. Definitely connect with her on LinkedIn and reach out with more follow-ups and questions that you have. And everyone, just let's do a quick round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
All
everybody.
right.
Really
Enjoy
appreciate
your
you showing
evening,
up.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Yeah, it was so much helpful. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.